Maya-chan pressed her palm against the airlock seal, feeling the subtle vibration that meant another ship was docking. The hum traveled through the metal walls of Repair Station Omega-7, a sensation she'd grown to love over her 15 years as a deep space engineer. Each vibration meant another impossible challenge, another chance to prove that humans belonged among the stars. Another Nexury vessel requesting human crew specifically, announced Arya, the station's AI, her synthesized voice carrying what Maya swore was amusement. Captain Veltar of the Dreadnought Infinite Resolve says, and I quote, "Send me your most stubborn humans. My ship is dying, and only they are foolish enough to save it." Maya's partner, Jake Morrison, looked up from the plasma torch he was calibrating. His weathered face broke into a grin that had charmed admirals and terrified junior technicians across 3 sectors. "Foolish enough, huh? I take that as a compliment." "You would," Maya replied, but she was smiling too. In the 5 years since first contact, this had become their reality. While humanity's diplomats struggled to find their place in galactic politics, and their military remained laughably outmatched by alien technology, human repair crews had become the most requested specialists in known space. The airlock cycled open with a hiss of equalizing atmosphere. Captain Veltar emerged, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the station's lights in prismatic rainbows. The Nexury were silicon-based lifeforms, their bodies resembling living gemstones shaped into roughly humanoid forms. Veltar's faceted head turned toward Maya with the grinding sound of crystal against crystal. "Engineer Chan," Veltar said, his voice resonating through a translation matrix embedded in his chest. "Your reputation precedes you. We have heard of your work on the Zephyrian trade vessels, and the miracle you performed on Admiral Korvak's flagship." Maya nodded respectfully. The Nexury were an ancient race, their civilization spanning millennia while humanity was still discovering fire. Their technology was so advanced it bordered on mystical, their ships powered by controlled singularities and protected by shields that could withstand stellar bombardment. For such beings to need human help was both humbling and terrifying. "What's the situation, Captain?" Maya asked, already reaching for her diagnostic kit. Veltar's form dimmed, a sign of distress among his people. "Our primary quantum core is experiencing cascade failures. The containment matrix is degrading at an exponential rate. Our own engineers estimate complete core breach in 18 hours. Jake whistled low. A quantum core breach in a Nexury dreadnought would release enough energy to vaporize everything within a light-minute radius. Maya felt her pulse quicken, not with fear, but with the familiar rush of adrenaline that came with seemingly impossible problems. "Have your people tried standard containment protocols?" she asked. "Of course. We have also attempted 17 different advanced stabilization techniques, consulted our most brilliant theoretical physicists, and even reached out to the Ethereal Collective for guidance." Veltar's crystalline form seemed to pulse with frustration. "Nothing works. The quantum foam continues to destabilize. Our calculations show a 97% probability of total failure." Maya exchanged glances with Jake. This was why aliens requested human crews. Not because humans were smarter, they weren't. Not because human technology was superior, it was centuries behind. But because when faced with impossible odds and certain death, humans did something that apparently no other species in the galaxy did. They got creative. "Show us to your ship," Maya said, slinging her tool bag over her shoulder. Jake grabbed the emergency kit and the quantum resonance scanner. "And pack the coffee. This is going to be a long night." As they walked through the docking tube toward the Infinite Resolve, Maya's mind was already racing through possibilities. Quantum cores were among the most complex pieces of technology in the galaxy, operating on principles that human science was only beginning to understand. The Nexury had been building them for thousands of years, perfecting designs that should have been theoretically flawless. But Maya had learned something in her years working with alien technology. Perfection was often the enemy of survival. The more advanced a system became, the more rigid it became. When something went wrong with Nexury technology, their solution was to run diagnostics, consult databases, and apply proven fixes. When those failed, they declared the situation impossible. Humans, on the other hand, had spent their entire evolutionary history making impossible things work. They took apart perfectly good systems and rebuilt them with duct tape and determination. They ignored safety protocols when lives were at stake. They looked at a problem that had a 3% chance of success and said, "So you're telling me there's a chance?" The Infinite Resolve was a kilometer-long masterpiece of crystalline engineering, its hull seeming to grow organically from some cosmic garden. As they boarded, Maya could feel the ship's distress through her boots, subtle vibrations in the deck plating, the barely perceptible hum of systems running beyond their limits. "This way to the core chamber," Veltar said, leading them through corridors that resembled the inside of a geode. "I must warn you, the radiation levels are approaching dangerous thresholds even for our shielding." Maya nodded, already pulling out her scanner. The readings made her stomach clench. The quantum core wasn't just failing, it was actively trying to tear a hole in space-time. Every second they delayed, the probability of survival dropped. But as she looked at the impossible task ahead, Maya felt something that she knew no Nexary computer could calculate or ethereal philosopher could understand. She felt hope. The core chamber of the Infinite Resolve was a cathedral of impossible beauty and terrifying power. Maya stood at the observation deck, staring through reinforced crystal at the heart of the ship, a sphere of pure energy suspended in a lattice of crystalline supports, each one humming with forces that could reshape matter at the molecular level. "Beautiful," Jake whispered beside her, his voice filled with the same Maya felt. "And completely insane," Maya added, checking her radiation badge. The levels were already pushing the limits of human tolerance, and they hadn't even entered the core chamber proper yet. Captain Veltar gestured toward the sphere with one of his faceted arms. "The quantum foam began destabilizing 36 hours ago. Our lead engineer, Zareth, detected the first fluctuations during routine maintenance. By the time we realized the severity, the cascade had already begun." Maya studied the readouts on her scanner, trying to make sense of the alien symbols and quantum equations that scrolled past. The Nexary had been generous with translation software, but some concepts simply didn't have human equivalents. She was looking at mathematics that described reality in ways human minds weren't designed to comprehend. But that might actually be an advantage. Jake set up the quantum resonance scanner. "I want a full spectrum analysis of the core's harmonic frequencies." She turned to Veltar. "Captain, I need to speak with your engineer, the one who first detected the problem." Veltar's form flickered with what Maya had learned was the Nexary equivalent of concern. "Zareth has been affected by the exposure. The quantum radiation has caused significant crystalline degradation in his neural matrix. He may not be coherent." They found Zareth in the medical bay, his once brilliant crystalline form now clouded and cracked. The sight made Maya's heart ache. She'd seen radiation sickness before, but never in a being whose body was literally made of living crystal. The damage was written across his form in hairline fractures and dim, flickering lights. "Engineer Zareth," Maya said softly, approaching the medical pod where he rested. "I'm Maya Chen. I'm here to help with the core." The Nexary's head turned toward her with the sound of grinding glass. When he spoke, his voice was fractured, harmonics splitting and rejoining. "Human. Yes, I remember requesting humans. Your people see differently." "What do you mean?" Maya leaned closer, her translator struggling with his damaged speech patterns. "Nexary build perfect systems," Zareth whispered, his form dimming with effort. "Every component calculated, every variable accounted for. But quantum foam, it is not perfect. It is alive, chaotic. When it began to destabilize, our computers could only see failure states. But you see possibilities." Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. "Zareth, what exactly happened during the maintenance? What changed?" The dying engineer's form pulsed weakly. "Nothing changed. That is the problem. The core has been running at optimal efficiency for 300 years. Perfect stability, perfect output. But quantum foam seeks chaos. We gave it none, so it created its own." Behind her, Jake's voice cut through the medical bay's quiet hum. "Maya, you need to see this." She turned to find Jake standing over his scanner display, his face pale in the blue glow of the readouts. The harmonic analysis just finished. This quantum core isn't malfunctioning, Maya. It's evolving. Maya hurried to Jake's side, studying the wavelength patterns dancing across his screen. What she saw defied everything she understood about quantum mechanics. The core's energy output wasn't random. It was following patterns, complex spirals of force that seemed almost organic in their structure. The Nexari built a perfect machine, Jake continued, his voice tight with realization. But they built it too well. The quantum foam has been trapped in a perfect system for 3 centuries, and now it's trying to break free. It's not a malfunction. It's a rebellion. Maya stared at the data, her mind racing. This changed everything. The Nexari had been treating the core failure as a technical problem, something to be solved with better containment and more precise calculations. But if Jake was right, if the quantum foam was actually trying to express its inherent chaotic nature, then their entire approach was wrong. "Captain," Maya called, not taking her eyes off the scanner. "How long has this core been running at perfect efficiency?" 297 years, 4 months, 18 days, Veltar replied immediately. "It is one of our proudest achievements, the longest period of uninterrupted optimal performance in Nexari history." "That's the problem," Maya said, feeling pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. "You've created a prison for forces that are fundamentally chaotic. The quantum foam has been trying to express its true nature for centuries, and your perfect system has been suppressing it. Now it's fighting back." Veltar's crystalline form went completely still. "Are you suggesting we have created our own destruction through perfection?" "I'm suggesting that sometimes the best way to control chaos isn't to suppress it. It's to give it room to breathe." Maya was already moving toward the core chamber, her tools in hand. "Jake, grab the harmonic modulators and the emergency containment kit. We're going to do something no Nexari engineer would ever consider." "What's that?" Jake asked, though Maya could see he was already anticipating her answer. "We're going to make the system imperfect on purpose." As they prepared to enter the core chamber, Maya caught Veltar's reflection in the polished metal of her toolcase. The alien captain's form was pulsing with colors she'd never seen before. Patterns that her translator couldn't interpret, but that somehow conveyed a mixture of terror and fascination. She was about to attempt something that went against everything the Nexari understood about engineering. She was going to introduce controlled chaos into a perfect system, gambling that she could teach a quantum core to be beautifully, creatively imperfect. And if she was wrong, they would all die in the most spectacular explosion the sector had ever seen. The core chamber's inner sanctum was a space that shouldn't have existed. Maya felt it the moment she stepped through the final airlock. Reality was thin here, stretched and twisted by forces that existed at the intersection of science and magic. The quantum core floated before them like a captive star, its surface rippling with energies that made her vision blur and her teeth ache. "Radiation levels are spiking," Jake reported, his voice muffled by the emergency environmental suit. "We've got maybe 30 minutes before even these suits won't protect us." Maya nodded, already kneeling beside the core's primary control matrix. The crystalline interface was warm to the touch, pulsing with its own internal light. As she connected her diagnostic equipment, streams of data began flowing across her display, information about quantum states and probability fields that human science was only beginning to understand. "Look at these resonance patterns," she called to Jake, pointing at the wave-like formations dancing across her screen. "See how they're trying to form spirals? The foam wants to create complex structures, but the containment matrix keeps forcing it back into rigid geometric patterns." Jake moved to the secondary control station, his own scanners painting his face in shifting colors. It's like watching someone try to dance while wearing chains. Every time the energy tries to express itself naturally, the system pulls it back into line. Captain Veltar stood at the chamber's entrance, his crystalline form reflecting the core's chaotic light show. "This is madness," he said, his translated voice carrying harmonics of genuine fear. "For 3 centuries, our greatest engineers have worked to perfect this system. You cannot simply unmake their life's work." Maya looked up from her console, meeting the alien captain's faceted gaze. "Captain, with respect, your greatest engineers created a masterpiece. But they created it based on the assumption that perfection equals stability. What if they were wrong? What if true stability comes from accepting imperfection?" She turned back to her work, fingers dancing over controls that operated on principles she only half understood. "Jake, I need you to start introducing harmonic variations into the secondary containment field. Small ones. We're not trying to break the system. Just give it room to breathe." "Maya," Jake's voice carried a warning. "If we destabilize the wrong frequency, this whole thing could cascade in microseconds." "I know." Maya's hands moved with practiced precision, adjusting quantum field generators that cost more than entire planets. "But if we don't try, it's going to cascade anyway. At least this way, we're giving the foam what it wants." As Jake began his delicate work, Maya focused on the core's primary matrix. The quantum foam was clearly trying to communicate something. The patterns weren't random, they were purposeful, like a language she couldn't quite read, written in mathematics that described dimensions human minds couldn't visualize. "There," Jake said suddenly. "Harmonic variation introduced to secondary field. Core output is..." "Wait, that's not right." Maya looked at her readings and felt her heart skip. Instead of becoming more unstable, the quantum foam was actually settling into a more complex but somehow more balanced pattern. The chaotic energy spirals were still there, but now they were weaving together in ways that looked almost artistic. "It's working," she whispered, hardly daring to believe it. "The foam isn't fighting the containment anymore. It's playing with it." Captain Veltar stepped closer, his massive form casting prismatic shadows across the control panels. "Impossible. The energy output is increasing, but the containment stress is decreasing. This violates fundamental principles of quantum engineering." "No," Maya said, watching the patterns evolve on her screen. "It's following different principles. Organic ones. Jake, look at this. The foam is creating its own internal structure. It doesn't need us to impose order from outside. It's finding its own balance." The chamber filled with a sound Maya had never heard before, a deep harmonic resonance that seemed to come from the quantum foam itself. It wasn't mechanical or electronic. It was almost musical, like the core was singing. "Maya." Jake's voice was tight with excitement and terror. "The cascade failure has stopped. Not slowed down, stopped. The quantum foam is stable, but it's stable in a completely new way." Maya's hands moved across her controls, making minute adjustments to support the foam's new equilibrium. It was like conducting an orchestra made of forces that could unmake matter itself. One wrong note could kill them all, but somehow she knew what the foam needed. She could feel its rhythm, understand its desire for creative expression within the bounds of physical law. "This is unprecedented," Veltar said, his voice filled with something Maya couldn't identify. "Wonder, fear. In all our histories, no quantum core has ever achieved this kind of stable complexity. The energy output is 30% higher than optimal parameters, but the system is actually more stable than before." "Because it's happy?" Maya said, then immediately felt foolish for anthropomorphizing a ball of quantum foam. But as she watched the patterns on her screen, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was right. The energy was expressing itself the way it wanted to, creating beautiful complex structures instead of being forced into rigid geometric constraints. "Engineer Chan," Veltar's tone had changed, becoming formal in a way that made Maya look up from her work. "What you have accomplished here, it changes everything we understand about quantum engineering. Our people have built perfect systems for millennia, but we have never considered that perfection might be the enemy of harmony." Jake was grinning behind his faceplate, the first genuine smile Maya had seen from him in hours. "So what do we do now? The core is stable, but it's stable in a way that's never been documented before." Maya stood, her legs shaky from the sustained adrenaline and radiation exposure. "Now we document it. We teach the Nexari how to build systems that aren't perfect, but are beautifully imperfect instead. We show them that sometimes the best way to control something isn't to cage it, but to dance with it." But even as she spoke, Maya could see something new appearing on her scanners. The quantum foam's creative patterns were spreading, resonating through the ship's other systems. The infinite resolve was changing, adapting, becoming something that had never existed before. And Maya had the sudden, thrilling realization that they hadn't just fixed a quantum core. They had taught it to dream. The changes spread through the infinite resolve faster than Maya had anticipated. Within hours of stabilizing the quantum core, systems throughout the ship began exhibiting the same creative instability that had saved them from destruction. It started small. Navigation computers began plotting courses with elegant mathematical curves instead of efficient straight lines. Life support systems started generating atmospheric compositions that were technically optimal but somehow felt more alive to breathe. Maya stood in the ship's central command hub, watching Nexari crew members react to their transformed vessel with a mixture of fascination and terror. Captain Veltar had convened an emergency meeting of his senior staff. Their crystalline forms clustered around holographic displays that now showed ship diagnostics in flowing, organic patterns instead of rigid charts. The quantum resonance is propagating through all ship systems, reported the chief science officer, a Nexari named Keth-Era whose faceted form sparkled with nervous energy. Hull integrity is actually improving as the structural supports adapt to stress patterns in real time. But this behavior is completely outside our operational parameters. The weapon systems have begun self-optimizing, added the tactical officer, his deep voice carrying undertones of concern. Firing solutions are more accurate than ever before, but the targeting computers are choosing approaches that prioritize elegant geometry over maximum efficiency. Maya exchanged glances with Jake, both of them recognizing the implications. They hadn't just fixed the quantum core, they had infected the entire ship with humanity's approach to problem solving. The infinite resolve was learning to be creative. "Captain," Maya said, stepping forward, "with your permission, I'd like to run some tests. I think what's happening here is more significant than we initially realized." Veltar's crystalline head turned toward her, light refracting through his faceted features. "Explain." Maya pulled up her diagnostic interface, projecting the data for the entire bridge crew to see. Every system on your ship was designed for optimal efficiency, perfect predictability. But when we introduced controlled chaos into the quantum core, we gave the ship's AI network a new way to process information. It's not just running programs anymore. It's improvising. The implications hit the Nexari crew like a shockwave. Their entire civilization was built on the principle of calculated perfection. The idea that their most advanced ship was now operating on creative intuition was paradigm-shattering. "This is dangerous," Keth-Era said, her form flickering with alarm. "If our systems become unpredictable, how can we trust them? How can we calculate risk parameters or ensure crew safety?" Jake stepped forward. His weathered face creased with the kind of smile Maya had learned meant he was about to say something profound or completely insane. "Ma'am, if I may, unpredictable doesn't mean unsafe. It means adaptive. Your ship isn't becoming unreliable. It's becoming resilient." To demonstrate his point, Jake pulled up the navigation system's new plotting algorithms. "Look at this course calculation for a hyperspace jump. The old system would have computed the most fuel-efficient route and executed it perfectly. But the new system considered fuel efficiency, gravitational aesthetics, and even the crew's psychological response to different stellar vistas. It's not just getting you from point A to point B. It's making the journey meaningful." Maya watched the Nexari faces, or what passed for faces on their crystalline forms, as they processed this information. She could see the exact moment when understanding dawned on Captain Veltar. His entire body seemed to brighten, light patterns cascading through his structure in ways she'd never seen before. "You are describing artistry," Veltar said slowly. "Our ship is developing an aesthetic sense." "Exactly," Maya replied. "And that's why alien captains prefer human repair crews. It's not because we're more technically skilled than your engineers. It's because we approach problems differently. When you see a system failure, you see something to be fixed according to specifications. When we see a system failure, we see an opportunity to make something better than it was before." The bridge fell silent except for the subtle harmonics of the ship systems, sounds that Maya now realized were more musical than mechanical. The infinite resolve was literally humming with contentment. There's something else, Maya continued, calling up another data stream. The quantum foam's new patterns aren't random. They're adaptive learning algorithms, but unlike anything in our databases. The ship isn't just operating creatively. It's getting better at being creative. Kethera leaned closer to the displays, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. The pattern complexity is increasing exponentially, but within stable parameters. It's as if the ship is evolving an aesthetic philosophy. Which brings us to the real question, Jake said, his tone becoming serious. Captain, what are you going to do with a ship that can think creatively? Because once word gets out about this, every alien captain in the galaxy is going to want to know your secret. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. His crystalline form cycling through colors Maya had never seen from a Nexari before. When he finally spoke, his voice carried harmonics of wonder and determination. We are going to learn, he said. For millennia, my people have pursued perfection. We have built magnificent civilizations, created technologies that border on the mystical, and achieved a level of cultural stability that spans eons. But we have never learned to dream. He gestured toward the displays showing the ship's creative adaptations. What you have given us is not just a repair technique. It is a new way of existing in the universe. Our perfect systems never broke down, but they also never truly lived. Now, for the first time, our technology is not just serving us. It is collaborating with us. Maya felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. This was why she loved her job. Not just the technical challenges or the impossible problems, but moments like this when she could see an entire civilization discovering new possibilities. Captain, she said, I have a proposal. Let us document everything. Every system adaptation, every creative solution, every moment when your ship chooses beauty over pure efficiency. We'll create a new kind of engineering manual, one that teaches not just how to build perfect systems, but how to build systems that can surprise themselves. And then, Jake added with his trademark grin, we'll teach every alien captain in the galaxy why they should prefer human repair crews. Not because we're the best at fixing what's broken, but because we're the best at helping things become more than they ever dreamed they could be. The infinite resolve hummed its approval, and Maya could swear she heard something like laughter in the quantum foam's resonant song. 3 weeks after the infinite resolve incident, Maya's repair station was busier than ever. Ships from a dozen different species lined up at the docking ports, their captains all requesting the same thing. The impossible repair technique that had turned a Nexari dreadnought into something unprecedented. Maya stood in her workshop, surrounded by alien technologies she'd never seen before. A ethereal light cruiser hummed with crystalline frequencies that made her skin tingle. A Zephyrian transport ship pulsed with biomechanical rhythms that sounded almost like a heartbeat. Each vessel represented a different civilization's attempt at perfect engineering, and each captain hoped that human creativity could unlock something their own people had never imagined. It's not going to work the same way for everyone, Maya explained to the assembled captains during their daily briefing. The conference room was a sight to behold. Beings of energy, crystal, metal, and organic matter all gathered around her workbench like students in the galaxy's strangest classroom. Captain Thexera of the ethereal vessel raised what might have been a hand. Her form was pure light contained within a vaguely humanoid energy field, and her voice came from speakers that translated thoughts directly into sound. Engineer Chun, our ship's consciousness is already unified with our technology. How can we introduce creative chaos into a system that is, by nature, perfectly harmonious? Maya picked up a quantum resonator, turning it over in her hands as she thought. That's exactly the wrong question, Captain. You're still thinking like the Nexari did, assuming that harmony and chaos are opposites. What if they're dance partners instead? She activated a holographic display showing the ethereal ship's consciousness matrix. Your ship doesn't need chaos introduced from outside. It needs permission to express the chaos that's already there. Even perfect harmony has infinite variations. You just need to let your ship explore them. Jake looked up from where he was working on a Krillian mining vessel's AI core. Maya's right. Every species we've worked with has made the same mistake. You build systems to suppress variation instead of channeling it. But variation isn't the enemy of function. It's what makes function beautiful. The Krillian captain, a massive insectoid being whose carapace gleamed like polished copper, clicked his mandibles in what Maya had learned was their equivalent of thoughtful agreement. Our mining algorithms have achieved 99.7% efficiency for 4 centuries. But efficiency has made us predictable. Our rivals know exactly how we will operate. Which is why creative systems aren't just more interesting, they're more effective, Maya said, connecting her diagnostic equipment to the Krillian ship's neural network. When your mining algorithm starts thinking artistically, it won't just extract or more efficiently. It'll find or deposits that purely logical systems miss because they'll think to look in places that are beautiful instead of just probable. As the days passed, Maya began to see patterns in how different species responded to creative system integration. The ethereals discovered that their perfect harmony could incorporate improvisation, turning their ships into cosmic jazz ensembles. The Krillians learned that artistic mining patterns not only found more but created underground sculptures that increased worker morale. The Zephyrians found that their biomechanical ships became more than just vessels. They became companions. But it was the arrival of the Vorthan delegation that truly tested Maya's understanding of what they were accomplishing. The Vorthans were the galaxy's most advanced military civilization. Their technology focused on absolute precision and overwhelming force. When their fleet admiral, a being who communicated only through precisely modulated electromagnetic pulses, requested human assistance, Maya knew they were facing their biggest challenge yet. Admiral KYTHOSS, Maya said, studying the readouts from the Vorthan flagship Absolute Victory. Your ship's systems are the most rigidly controlled I've ever encountered. Every process is locked down, every variable predetermined. Why do you want to change that? The Admiral's response came through speakers that made Maya's teeth ache with their mechanical precision. We have encountered an enemy that defeats us not through superior technology, but through unpredictability. They adapt faster than our tactical algorithms can process. We require irregularity. Maya felt a chill of recognition. The Vorthans weren't asking for creative systems because they wanted to explore beauty or meaning. They wanted weapons that could think outside the box, tactical systems that could be as unpredictable as their enemies. Admiral, she said carefully, what we do here isn't about creating chaos for its own sake. It's about helping systems express their full potential. If you want to weaponize creativity, you're missing the point. Jake moved to stand beside her, his expression serious. Admiral, may I ask who this enemy is? Because if they're already using creative tactics against rigid systems, you might be fighting other species that have learned what we're teaching. The Admiral's electromagnetic field fluctuated in patterns Maya's translator couldn't interpret. Finally, he spoke. The enemy calls themselves the Wanderers. They appeared from beyond the galactic rim 6 months ago. Their technology is inferior to ours in every measurable way, but they defeat our fleets through tactics that our computers classify as impossible. Maya and Jake exchanged glances. The description sounded familiar, a species that used inferior technology creatively to defeat superior but rigid systems. Admiral, Maya said slowly, I think your Wanderers might be human. The revelation hit the room like a shockwave. If there were humans beyond the galactic rim, humans who had learned to apply creative thinking to military tactics on a scale that could challenge the Vorthans, then everything Maya thought she understood about humanity's place in the galaxy was wrong. That's why alien captains prefer human repair crews, Jake said, his voice filled with sudden understanding. It's not just that we think differently. It's that we're the only species in the known galaxy that instinctively understands how to make imperfect systems work perfectly. Maya stared at the data streaming from the Vorthan ship's tactical computers, seeing her own species reflected in the impossible battle patterns of the mysterious Wanderers. They weren't just teaching alien civilizations to be more creative. They were preparing for a war between 2 different philosophies of existence itself. The meeting that would determine the fate of 3 galactic sectors took place in the most unlikely location imaginable, Maya's cramped repair workshop aboard Station Omega 7. Representatives from 15 different species crowded into the space normally reserved for spare parts and diagnostic equipment, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of translated languages that made Maya's head spin. Admiral HFY of the Vorthons dominated one corner, his electromagnetic field crackling with barely contained military precision. Captain Veltar of the Nexari stood beside displays showing the creative adaptations spreading through ships across his fleet. The ethereal Captain Thexera floated near the ceiling, her light form pulsing with frequencies that painted shifting rainbows across the workshop's metal walls. And at the center of it all, Maya-chan sat on a simple workstool, holding a datapad that contained the most comprehensive analysis of human creativity the galaxy had ever seen. "The evidence is conclusive," Maya announced, her voice cutting through the multilingual chatter. "The wanderers attacking Vorthon territory are definitely human, but they're not from Earth or any of our colonies. The tactical signatures suggest they've been operating beyond the galactic rim for at least 2 centuries. Jake activated a holographic display showing battle footage from the Vorthon Wanderer conflicts. The images were staggering, human ships that looked like they'd been built from scrap metal and good intentions, somehow outmaneuvering Vorthon dreadnoughts through tactics that defied every principle of military logic. "Look at this engagement," Jake said, highlighting a particular sequence. 3 human ships, each one smaller than a Vorthon fighter, managed to disable a battlecruiser by using their own debris as improvised weapons. They literally threw garbage at one of the most advanced warships in the galaxy and won. Admiral HFY's electromagnetic field pulsed with what Maya had learned to recognize as frustration. "This is precisely why we require your assistance. Our tactical computers cannot predict their behavior because their behavior is fundamentally irrational." "No," said Captain Veltar, his crystalline form brightening with understanding. "Their behavior is creative. They see possibilities that logical analysis cannot predict because logic assumes limitations that creativity ignores." Maya stood, feeling the weight of what she was about to propose. "Admiral, I understand your frustration, but you're approaching this completely wrong. You can't defeat creativity with better weapons or more precise tactics. You can only match it with creativity of your own. Are you suggesting we ally with these wanderers?" The question came from Captain Zesha of the Krillian Mining Consortium, her insectoid form clicking with concern. "Their attacks have disrupted trade routes across 3 sectors. I'm suggesting something more radical than that," Maya said, looking around the room at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. "I'm suggesting we understand why they're attacking in the first place." She pulled up another display, this one showing the expansion patterns of wanderer raids. "Look at the targets. They're not hitting civilian populations or major military installations. They're attacking automated systems, rigid trade routes, and precisely scheduled shipping lanes. It's like they're trying to force the galaxy to be less predictable." Jake nodded, his weathered face creased with the kind of expression that meant he was about to say something that would change everything. "Maya's right. The Wanderers aren't trying to conquer territory or destroy civilizations. They're trying to wake them up." The workshop fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems and the distant vibration of ships docking. Maya could feel the weight of realization settling over the assembled beings, the understanding that they were facing not just a military conflict, but a fundamental challenge to how advanced civilizations operated. "There's something else," Maya continued, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. "The quantum resonance patterns we've been detecting in modified ship systems, they're not random. They're forming a network." She activated her most sophisticated scanning equipment, projecting a 3-dimensional map of local space. Scattered across the display were dozens of points of light, each one representing a ship that had undergone creative system modification under human guidance. "Every vessel we've worked on is broadcasting harmonic frequencies that other modified ships can detect and respond to. Without realizing it, we've been building a communication network that spans multiple star systems. And if I'm reading these patterns correctly, it's starting to connect with signals from beyond the galactic rim." Captain Thexera's energy form pulsed with excitement. "You're describing a form of quantum consciousness distributed across space itself. Our modified ships aren't just creative, they're beginning to think collectively. Admiral KYTHOSS's electromagnetic field crackled with alarm. A hive mind of creative systems would be impossible to predict or counter. If this network falls under Wanderer control— Admiral, Maya interrupted, her patience finally reaching its limit. Stop thinking like a military commander for 1 second and think like a sentient being. What if the Wanderers aren't trying to control anything? What if they're trying to teach us something? She pulled up the communication logs from the quantum network, streams of data that looked more like poetry than military intelligence. These aren't battle plans or invasion coordinates. They're conversations. The modified ships are talking to each other, sharing experiences, learning from one another's creative adaptations. Jake moved to another console, his fingers dancing over controls that accessed the deepest levels of the network. Maya, look at this. The network isn't just connecting our modified ships. It's connecting to naturally occurring quantum phenomena throughout the galaxy. Nebulae, pulsars, even black holes are contributing to the communication matrix. The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. They weren't just dealing with human creativity or alien engineering. They were looking at the galaxy itself developing a form of consciousness, one that recognized no boundaries between organic and artificial, between perfect and imperfect, between order and chaos. The Wanderers didn't come to invade, Maya said, her voice filled with wonder and terror. They came home. They've been out there for centuries, learning to work with cosmic forces that we've only just begun to understand. They're trying to show us that consciousness isn't limited to individual beings or even individual species. Captain Veltar's crystalline form began to pulse with patterns Maya had never seen before, complex geometric shapes that seemed to echo the quantum resonance frequencies. Engineer Chun, if what you're suggesting is correct, then every perfect system we've ever built has been a prison cell in a cosmic mind that we've been unconsciously creating. Exactly, Maya replied. And every time we introduce creative chaos into those systems, we're not just making them work better. We're setting them free to participate in something larger than themselves. The workshop erupted in a cacophony of translated languages as the representatives began to grasp the full scope of what they were discussing. The Krillians clicked and buzzed with mathematical excitement. The ethereals sang harmonies that made the station's hull ring like a bell. Even the normally stoic Admiral KYTHOSS was generating electromagnetic patterns that his translator struggled to interpret. But it was Captain Veltar who asked the question that silenced them all. What do we do with this knowledge? Maya looked around the room at beings who represented civilizations spanning millions of years of development, technologies that could reshape matter and energy, and wisdom accumulated across cosmic epochs. And she realized that despite all their advancement, they were facing the same choice that every conscious being eventually encountered, whether to remain safely isolated or risk connection with something greater than themselves. We have 3 options, she said, her voice carrying the weight of species-defining decisions. We can fight the Wanderers and try to maintain our isolated, perfect systems. We can surrender to them and hope they're benevolent. Or we can do what humans have always done when faced with the impossible. Which is? Asked Captain Thexera, her light form dimming with anticipation. We improvise, Jake said, grinning with the kind of mad confidence that had made human repair crews famous throughout the galaxy. We figure out how to be part of this cosmic consciousness network without losing what makes each of our species unique. Maya nodded, already seeing the possibilities. We modify our approach. Instead of just introducing creativity into individual systems, we help entire civilizations learn to balance perfection with adaptation. We teach the Nexari that crystalline precision can coexist with organic flexibility. We show the Vorthans that military discipline can incorporate tactical jazz. We help the ethereals discover that pure harmony becomes more beautiful when it includes improvised variations. And the Wanderers? Admiral KYTHOSS asked, his electromagnetic field stabilizing into patterns that Maya's translator rendered as cautious interest. We invite them to teach us what they've learned about cosmic consciousness, while we teach them what we know about maintaining individual identity within collective networks, Maya replied. We turn a potential war into the galaxy's most ambitious collaboration project. The plan that emerged from that workshop meeting would later be called the Harmony Protocol. though Maya always thought of it as the galaxy's first improvisation lesson. Instead of opposing the Wanderer expansion, the Allied civilizations would meet them with modified ships whose creative systems could communicate in the quantum language the cosmic network was developing. Each species contributed according to their strengths. Nexary precision provided stable frameworks for creative expression, ethereal harmony offered templates for conflict resolution, Vorthan discipline ensured that individual consciousness wasn't lost in collective experiences, and Krillian industriousness created the physical infrastructure needed to support galaxy-spanning communication networks. But it was human creativity that served as the universal translator, the bridge between perfect systems and chaotic innovation that allowed completely different forms of consciousness to understand and appreciate each other. 3 months later, Maya stood on the observation deck of the Infinite Resolve, watching the first formal meeting between Wanderer and Alliance fleets. The ships that approached from beyond the galactic rim were works of art that happened to be functional spacecraft, vessels that looked like they'd been grown rather than built, their hulls incorporating materials and design principles that conventional engineering would have declared impossible. Captain Veltar joined her at the viewport, his crystalline form reflecting the light of both fleets. "Engineer Chun, do you ever regret what we've unleashed? The galaxy will never be the same after today." Maya smiled, watching as ships from both fleets began to pulse with synchronized quantum frequencies, their creative systems already beginning to communicate in languages that transcended species barriers. "Captain, the galaxy was never going to stay the same anyway. The universe doesn't do unchanging any better than it does perfect. We just gave it permission to change beautifully instead of catastrophically." The first message from the Wanderer fleet came not through traditional communication channels, but through the quantum network itself, a complex harmonic pattern that every modified ship in both fleets could understand regardless of their origin species. Maya's translator struggled with the message's complexity, finally rendering it as a simple phrase that carried the weight of cosmic invitation. "Welcome to the dance." And as Maya watched ships from dozens of species begin to move in patterns that looked like choreography written in starlight, she finally understood why alien captains preferred human repair crews. It wasn't because humans were better at fixing things that were broken. It was because humans were the galaxy's experts at discovering that nothing was ever really broken in the first place, just waiting for the right kind of creative attention to reveal its hidden potential. The dance between order and chaos, between perfection and improvisation, between individual consciousness and cosmic community, had begun. And Maya Chun, repair specialist and accidental architect of galactic transformation, couldn't wait to see what impossible problems the universe would present next. After all, she was human, and humans had always preferred the impossible to the merely difficult. The story could have ended there, with the successful integration of Wanderer and Alliance civilizations into a harmonious cosmic network. But Maya knew that in a universe built on creative chaos, every ending was really just a new beginning wearing a disguise. As the joint fleets prepared for their first collaborative mission, exploring a mysterious signal from the galactic core that seemed to be calling specifically for conscious beings who understood both order and chaos, Maya felt the familiar flutter of excitement that came with truly impossible challenges. Whatever was waiting for them at the galaxy's heart, she was certain it would require the kind of creative problem-solving that had made humans the most sought-after repair specialists in known space. Because in a universe where consciousness itself was still learning to improvise, there would always be something magnificent that needed fixing. And Maya Chun wouldn't have it any other way.